G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to IL-2 and welcome back to Mission 3 of the 10 Days of Autumn campaign. This is Uninvited Guests. So it's been an hour since the last mission was completed, give or take. We successfully escorted the Ju-52 to the runway and it unloaded its cargo. However, the I-16s and MiG-3s that were harassing the runway at the start of the previous mission have now revealed their purpose. They were probing the airbase's defences in the lead up to a larger attack. The attack has caught most of the Luftwaffe forces on the ground, with only a small cap actually in operation at the time of the attack. Instead of running for the safety of the air raid bunkers, our pilot has run towards one of the Ready Alert fighters and has scrambled in an attempt to try and hold off the Soviet forces for long enough for the rest of the Luftwaffe to get their aircraft off the ground. The mission today couldn't be simpler. Engage and destroy as many Soviet fighters as is possible. Now, the Soviet attack is primarily made up of MiG-3 fighters, with I-16s doing ground attacks with rockets. No bombers in this particular attack. So we start off the mission coming straight off the end of the runway, pushing the aircraft in emergency power to get away as fast as we possibly can, and maintaining power in a steep, rapid climb, going for as much altitude as we can possibly get. Now, there is cloud cover over the runway. Thankfully, most of the enemy forces are below it, but we're trying to get above it so we can dive in through it. The cloud cover starts at about 950 metres. We've gone to about 1.3 kilometres at this point in time, beginning a long bank around so we can dive back in underneath the cloud and begin engaging the enemy fighters with an energy advantage. And we're now in the dive, breaching through the clouds, looking for our first target. And there is a dot, so we're beginning our bank in to follow the target. At this point, I'm not entirely sure whether or not this is a Luftwaffe or a Soviet aircraft. But I'm also coming out of this dive at around about 500 kilometers an hour, so if it turns out to be a German aircraft, I can just pull back into the clouds and disappear. I have all the energy that I need. But of course the aircraft is actually a MiG-3, which is unsurprising. The Soviets well and truly outnumber the number of German aircraft that are in the air at this point in the engagement. Now it's just a matter of putting this one down before one of his buddies notices this fight. The Bf-109 F2 and the MiG-3 are actually surprisingly well matched to one another. Both have similar top speeds and turning capabilities at this altitude, although the MiG with the larger wing area actually does turn a little bit tighter, but it's made up for in the 109's superior roll rate and superior climb rate. And the first shots have landed home. We got a nice greasy black smoke trail. That means I have done damage to the engine, or at the very least I've done damage to the oil cooling system. In either case, the aircraft is not going to be able to maintain power for very long with that kind of damage. At this point, the MiG-3 is slightly holding me out in the turn and beginning to take it into the vertical. I'm entirely fine with this. I will be able to get the aircraft to perform better in vertical maneuvers. And pop goes the parachute. Pilot has bailed out. The MiG-3 is now down, so quickly stall turn the aircraft back over. Point the nose back towards the ground and punch the throttles forward to start gaining as much airspeed as we possibly can, while also searching for our next target. And as we were diving in, following the tracer fire from the anti-aircraft guns, we picked up a new target almost straight away. The target is another MiG-3, however this one's engaged with a 109 already and is moving in for the kill, so I'm trying to slot myself into position to intercept the MiG-3 and take it down, or at least get it to disengage before it manages to take down the 109. Unfortunately, I was not fast enough. One short burst from the MiG-3 and the 109 begins belching smoke and heading towards the ground. So with one less cap fighter in the area, I begin trying to pull a lead on the MiG-3. Now, some of my shots have already landed home. The aircraft is clearly leaking fuel. However, while a fuel leak is nice, it's not going to be critical, and with the front lines to Russia so close to the runway, there's still a good chance that he can kill somebody and then make it home, even with this damage. Now, at the time, I was so focused on trying to take down this MiG-3 that I completely missed this coming. That was a Bf-109 F2 engaging an aircraft that is trying to move in onto my 6 at this point in time. He passed through it almost exactly the point where I stopped firing my guns and was within 10 meters of the front of my aircraft during that crossover. And it's a good thing he didn't interrupt those shots because they have landed home, crippling damage to the right hand wing and second MiG-3 out of the fight. Now at this point, as far as I could see, the skies were actually looking relatively clear. There's a couple of dots maneuvering around that look like engagements, but nothing that stands out clearly as an enemy fighter, so I'm looking for the closest cluster I can find. Just ahead there is a group of 4 aircraft, 2 in the lead and 2 following. It looks like the rear aircraft are engaging and pursuing the front aircraft at this point, but I can't exactly tell whether or not it's the Germans attacking the Soviets or the Soviets attacking the Germans. So I need to close in and work out whether I'm going to defensive to try and defend cap fighters at this point in time, or whether I'm joining a pursuit. As it turned out, I was joining. It's 2 MiG-3s, one taking a little bit more of a lead and one that has been slightly damaged and is moving slower, and the 2 109s are working together to take down the second aircraft, allowing the first one to get away. Rather than joining the 2 109s and engaging the second aircraft, I line up on the first aircraft, open up the throttles and begin my chase to run it down. Now the 109 is slightly faster than the MiG-3. Comparable speeds, but it is slightly faster, but it is going to take a fairly long time to be able to wind this MiG-3 in. More than that, I have to keep in mind the front lines. Migalovo Airfield is surrounded by the Kalinin front on 3 out of its 4 sides, with the immediate front lines being less than a kilometre from the airfield. However, there is a second front line that wraps around a little bit further back. It's only about 4 or 5 kilometres, and this is the point where you start finding the larger artillery guns, and you start finding the anti-aircraft defences. I can afford to pursue the MiG-3 a couple of kilometres over the front lines, but if I continue for much further than that, I run the risk in coming into contact with Soviet anti-aircraft positions. A single 109 at low altitude is a beautiful target for Pac AAA to focus on. The other thing I need to keep in mind too is ammunition. I'm out of primary cannon ammunition. The 20mm is dead, so I'm down to just the machine guns at this point. Thankfully, the MiG-3 wasn't suspecting somebody to come up on his 6, and I managed to get some really nice shots in. He's bleeding white, so at this point I have definitely punched his cooling system. However, the aircraft does seem to have slowed down. At this point, it looks like the damage may be more significant than it looks. The pilot is still trying to manoeuvre, but even the manoeuvres seem slower and more sluggish than the manoeuvres of the previous MiG-3s, far less aggressive. I would say I have done some damage somewhere else, although I couldn't name to you what that damage is. Although this slower manoeuvring and slower aircraft does work out very well in my favour, considering my machine guns are running incredibly low at this point, which is why I'm being cautious and taking my time with each and every shot, making sure I line up the guns so that the maximum amount of the remaining ammunition that I have lands home. Using just machine guns, even an aircraft like the MiG-3 can be incredibly difficult to take down. Now, despite how it looks, the AI pilot here isn't just continuing to turn. He's running straight, then turning the aircraft, running straight, then turning the aircraft. And each time he runs the aircraft straight, he's actually pulling further and further and deeper into Soviet territory, slowly dragging me away from the runway. If this continues for more than a minute or two, I'm going to have to break off the pursuit simply to make it back home. And another burst lands home, and now we have oily black engine smoke as well as the telltale green of a fuel tank hit coming out of the aircraft. This is all the major liquid systems within the aircraft now compromised. Unfortunately, that was also the last of my ammunition, so at this point, so deep in the Soviet territory with no bullets remaining, it's time to go home. So, we returned to Migalovo Airfield with 2 confirmed kills and 1 probable. However, that probable is going to go down behind Soviet lines, and as a result, unless it's a nasty crash, the pilot should make it back out. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you've enjoyed the video and thank you very much for watching. As always, please remember to check the video description down below for links to my Patreon if you would like to support the channel, and links to my social media and my Twitch account. I haven't been streaming much over the last month, mainly due to the internet outages I suffered earlier on in the month, as well as having a few connectivity issues and a lot of family stuff in the lead up to Christmas and New Year's. But I will be returning to streaming in January as soon as I can. Anyways, ladies and gents, until next time, remember to click that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, and as always, fly smart, fly safe, and I will catch you in the skies.